Judging by the responses to the general election results in the UK, we can see that the establishment is a little bit nervous. Key front-facing MPs in the former shadow cabinet, now on the front benches of the current government, were about to lose their seat at the table, with people like Wes Streeting, I beg your pardon, was close to losing his MP seat to Liane Mohammed. The difference was razor thin, with 500 votes between them. Jess Phillips also was close to losing her seat, with only 500 seats between her and the independent candidate behind her. And the establishment is a little bit nervous because it knows the reasons for why it's such a tight call. It's a tight race because a lot of these pro Gaza MPs are either winning or are entering these really tight battles with these establishment politicians who have received almost a decade of coverage in the media. They've had all the PR, they've had all the positive press, and they've had the benefit of the doubt of these pro-Palestinian candidates, independent candidates, and Green MPs being, thrashed in the media. And so the establishment is a little bit nervous because it knows that one wrong step and the chances of being re-elected, chances of having a majority for the long haul is not, something they can take for granted. So much so that the establishment is so scared that when Liane Mohammed came 500 votes behind Wes Streeting, who eventually won, the established media, in the form of rags like the Standard, they didn't even bother to mention that she was second place. They have a graph that mentions Conservative Party, the Labour Party, Reform, the Greens, but they didn't mention the Independent, who is closely behind the first. So clearly they want to whitewash, they want to gaslight, they want to gatekeep, they want to brush under the rug these candidates who are gathering steam. And I think we should not let up, because the issue of Gaza is something obviously we cannot ignore, because of course it's a situation that's been accelerating recently, but it's been a situation that's been a serious moral issue for the last 77 years, since the conception of Israel, when the land of Palestine was taken by force. So we shouldn't let up. We shouldn't, we shouldn't ignore the successes, because, even you may not won the seat at the table of Parliament, you still got 500 votes between you and the winner, which means it's incredibly close. And all it takes is just another election for you to win that seat back. So I don't think any of these incredible MPs from Ilham Mohammed, and even people like other independent candidates, and also let's not forget Faisal Shaheen, Faiza Shaheen. She was very close behind her candidate too. And if it wasn't for the fact that Labour was, had a disgusting, disingenuous, weaselly kind of approach to the left candidates, Labour could have won more seats, because Faiza Shaheen was going to be a candidate for Labour, but she was kicked out. But now it seems like the ship has sailed. Labour are no longer for the working class. They're no longer for human rights. Therefore, being a understudy for the Conservative Party. And they are hook, line, and sinker. They're together in tandem with a lot of the centrist media, the mainstream media. So much so that The Sun even gave its blessing to Keir Starmer prior to winning. of course, the Sun only backs the to be winners, and that's how the Sun has had 100% prediction rate, accurate prediction rate in terms of backing the winner. They don't want to back the loser, do they? And now but it just means that the Sun, obviously owned by Rupert Murdoch, a billionaire, a mogul, has some influence on the Labour Party. And so Labour Party are going to be very careful about, trying to not, cede too much ground to the pro-human rights crowd on the left, but also not do anything that would upset the right wing, which is it's kind of weaselly position. It's such a weak position, because we can see what happened in France. Macron did not have the support of the electorate, and so he called an election, and it looked like the far right was going to win, but it's actually the left, not the centre, that took it from the far right. Jean-Luc Mélenchon is basically the Corbyn of France, and it's funny because the Starmerites, the centrists of this country in the UK, want to take some of the credits, some of the they want to bask in the glory of the far right being being impeded, and having their victory shredded to bits. But it was the left, the Corbyns of France, that won it. So it's not a Starmer right win; it's a left win. There's a difference between the left and centre, even though the media would like to create obscure the difference between the two. The left obviously is pro-human rights, pro-worker rights. The centrists are usually backed, supported, funded by corporations. And the difference between the centre and the right wing is that the centre has this aesthetics of sensibility. They're about stability. They're about having this kind of bureaucratic, technocratic, or they're not really technocratic, but they're bureaucratic approach to politics, where they try and give off this sense of these stable managers of a country. Problem here, however, is that when it becomes clear that they don't really have any grassroots appeal to the electorate, the country shifts right wing in its in its consensus, in its sensibilities, and its attitudes, because of course the country is descending into chaos in terms of funding of infrastructure, and the right wing and likes to use scapegoats on the of immigrants, and it's a time-honored tradition of the far right. The far right has always been losing the game of, or rather the arc of history, in terms of being on the right side of history. But they're constantly coming back because there's always ignorant people out there. There's always people who, act before they think. There are always people who don't necessarily think about things in a nuanced way. People who don't have empathy. There are always going to be ignorant people. And I'm not saying this to be rude or to be flippant. It's true. Ignorant people exist. There are people who don't really care, who think that books are woke, for example. There are people who think that the color of your skin has a significant effect on your personality. And there's not much of an antidote unless you were to, obviously you can have debates with them, but really the left wing needs to rise up, needs to provide an effective vision other than the centrist argument, which is about maintaining stability, maintaining their corporate, donors get well fed off the fat of the work of the working people. And the right wing don't really care about the working class. Of course, Nigel Farage was gung ho on Brexit, which really took out billions out of the economy, made country poorer. Didn't really have an effective response to the cost of living crisis of the increase in gas prices. In fact, oil, petrol prices, so much so that Nigel Farage backed Liz Truss's economic plan of borrowing lots of money but keeping taxes low or even lower, but therefore having no kind of credibility in the eyes of investors, and therefore losing a lot of trust in the economy. And that's why we had a little bit of an economic tumble, which required a lot of banks bailing out some of the debt, and creating security. And so the far right don't understand economics, but they don't care really. They care more about having their vision of a pure country state. I mean, just look at the Third Reich. The internal mechanics of Alternative for Deutschland or Reform Party, or Le Pen in France. The internal mechanics is very similar to the Third Reich. I'm not saying this hyperbolically. It's very easy to just brush them and tar them with smears. I don't believe in smears, but I do believe that the far right, the right wing generally, have an internal logic that is consistent with the internal logic of the Third Reich, the countries throughout ages who've been anti-Semitic. It's about us versus them, using them as a scapegoat with which you can place all the country's problems, and so the ruling class can just brush away their problems, the problems that they are responsible for, onto a scapegoat. But overall, what I'm here to say is that really it's a success for the left. We had 4 Green MPs, 4 Independent MPs, and Jeremy Corbyn. 9 MPs altogether have won a significant proportion of seats. We cannot overlook this fact. And the media's talking about, and it's putting on a pedestal the 4 seats or 5 seats that have been won by Reform Party, but the left has won, the true pro-human rights left has won double that. But they don't want to make too much noise about that, because establishment is about having society beholden to the ruling class, and the ruling class are very much in cahoots with the geopolitics of the US, and the US really want to support, for now, Israel. So that's the situation right now. The ruling class also want to ensure that the working class are running on the treadmill of the corporations, so that we don't ask for too much from business owners who essentially own the country. Literally, they own the assets, they own the corporations, they own the money which they donate to politicians. So that's where we are right now. Great successes. The establishment is nervous, and I think it's important for us to push forward in leftist and independent forces towards a bigger green left agenda, pro-human rights, green agenda, which we can thwart the rise of the right with. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. The video very much appreciated. Thank you.